Hello and welcome. These are horse racing selections for Saturday, the 22nd of February. I am Flatcapcallum and I'm hoping you are all very, very well. Right, surprise! We've got a little roguey Saturday video. I had said on the last video I'll only come back if there's something sort of half decent, and also I said I might have a look at Cheltenham anti-post stuff once the handicaps declarations were released on the 18th of February. This is sort of basically this video. I thought about last night, I got a bit too tired and I was like, I'll just leave it, it's fine. And from a selections point of view, from anti-post, I've got a bit of a ramble, less selections, more ramble. And so I just thought I'd leave it. And then basically when I went through stuff like mid-morning, I was just going back through stuff. I was actually messaging a few different people about horses, and I kind of realised actually the selections I'd have put out for the channel had either stayed the same price or drifted. So I thought, do you know what? Let's give it a spin because we've got some juicy prices. So I got a 5-horse bet for Saturday. First race is the 232. Is it 232 Chepstow, the Temps qualifier? We've got a race at the Saudi Cup meeting in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. We've got the main race at Kempton, and then I've got one at Southwell and one at Chelmsford. So that's the 5. So I'll do a quick review of the last video from a couple of weeks ago. We'll go through these bets, then I'll give you a bit of a Cheltenham anti-post ramble. Definitely one horse I'm going to mention, but bookie specific. But yeah, there's quite a few things I wanted to talk about from Cheltenham Festival anti-post because I think this year is even harder than some other years. So last video we did, I think, was the 9th, Sunday the 9th of February. We had this bet where my memory says Richardson was a cracker. I think it was rule 4 on it, and maybe like 15p. But that won, so that basically got us over the line because nothing else in that bet came off. And then in the second bet, he TT placed in a Temps qualifier, so we're trying to luck there again, and then nothing else with it. So I think we made about £8 profit. The numbers will be in the description of the video as they always are. And I think we're about £23 up for the year from 4 videos, which is equivalent to about 37% ROI. Something in that ilk. Right. Saturday's bets. Now, I'll remember because this was all stuff I picked out yesterday evening, and I wasn't necessarily knowing if I was doing a video, so I'll try and remember what I remember. Okay, here's what I'm going with. It's £14 channel investment I'm making. 232. I think you could say it's a little bit of a flyer on this one because you've got to have a leap of faith on Anna Bonina. I don't think it's the deepest quality Temps qualifier. And Anna Bonina is a horse that last time ran in the Temps qualifier and didn't achieve a great deal. They haven't moved the handicap mark down. I mean, it's 7. It would be running £7 lighter if it was running in Ireland. So I think it's interesting that John McConnell's persisting here because last year he did qualify it in the Musselburgh. I think it was the Musselburgh one, and then went on to run in the Temps. Last time it sort of slightly flopped in the Musselburgh one, but it came off a bit of a layoff, and it's still £3 lighter than when it qualified for the Temps last year and ran in the Temps. So I think he's trying to see if he can get it in the race. So I think this horse, unlikely winner, but I would say there's definitely a lot in there that says it's handicapped. And he's a yard shrewd enough to be trying to cheeky 3rd, 4th place. If we get a winner, miraculous, great, we'll take it. But I'm backing that with the viewpoint that it's probably a 3rd, 4th placed horse is what they're trying to target it at, not win the race. We will see. Then we're going over to Riyadh. So if you various online bookies, as far as I can see, most bookies have priced up these Saudi Cup meetings. Really, really valuable meeting in Saudi Arabia. I've gone through all. Not so much interested in the dirt races. I think they're harder to read. So I've gone through the turf ones, and this was the one horse that stood out for me. It's a good betting structure race, and I had this on form of running in the Middle East. You'd probably say this is 3rd best. Because it's run against Spirit Dancer, which is about half the price twice, and Spirit Dancer got the better of it. But I think what I would interpret from the form and the stable changes and stuff, that maybe Caliph is potentially kicked on a touch, and Spirit Dancer might be slightly on the decline. So I'm absolutely willing to take Caliph to try and beat Spirit Dancer for the first time in the Middle East. But yeah, I think 14-1 each way, 3 places, is a good enough bet, because I kind of see the horse probably being, well, it should finish second to fifth because it's a 34th type horse. So that's the range I'm working off with Caliph. Then the 335 Kempton. The big handicap is valuable handicap as well. People always think everyone's targeting Cheltenham, and we'll get to that, but there'll be some that will be targeting this race, and I think Corrigine Rock is an interesting one because Lucinda Russell does very well on these staying chases. Obviously, people will remember Corach Rambler because it won the Ultima twice, but actually before that she had Big River that Derek Fox rode twice in the Ultima that came 4th and 5th. So her last 4 runners in the Ultima with Derek Fox were first, 4th and 5th. And this horse, absolutely, I think, could have run in that race, but they've not put it in there. They've put another horse in there. Is it something like Myrtle Street? It's nowhere near a bet right now, but when they originally did the handicaps, and again, this is something I'll cover in a bit, but when they released the handicap stuff on the 18th of February, you could get 25s on that, the Lucinda Russell horse in the Ultima. And now it's about 12s, 14s best price, I think. The challenge with that horse is it's got a very, very low weight potentially, and might either be out the handicap or not quite to get in, depending on how many other horses come out. Anyway, the point I'm saying is this horse has got a higher rated handicap mark, so could have been an even more obvious horse to put in that race. So I think this horse stepping up in trip looks a good one. It's run a lot over 2.5 miles. Put some good performances in from a handicap mark. If this was a 2.5 mile race, I'd be interested in a bet. The fact it's a 3 makes it interesting. You go in slightly more on the fact that Lucinda Russell's very good at these horses stepping up, rather than what you see in the horse in terms of does it really, really want to go 3 miles. But it's a really flat track at Kempton, which basically means no up and down stuff. So, unlike a Cheltenham where you've got a big hill and stuff like that, Kempton's really, really flat. So if you're going to try a horse that's confident at 2.5 and you want to step to 3, although it's an extra half a mile, it means less at a track like Kempton because it's a flat track. All right, try and slow down my chat. Right, 5:30 Southwell Tradesman. I really like that bet. That is my favourite of the 5. So if you look at the form, some will interpret the form that it done most of its winning at Chelmsford. I actually think it's run its best performances at Southwell. Last couple of times it's been at Chelmsford, it's sort of been a bit mediocre. I wouldn't say bad, but mediocre. I think its best performances have actually been at Southwell on the 2 miles. So the 2 times it's run there in the last sort of 12 months, it's come second and third. And it's £1 lower than one of those races and £3 lower than another one. Also, those 2 times when it did run there, it had Hector Crouch and Hayley Turner riding on it. Today we've got Taryn Langley, £7 claimer, who did try on it last time, and they've persisted with him this time. The watch out with the horse is this race is a class 3, which has never been near. So last time it's running class 5s, races where it has run well at Southwell being class 4. So there's a little bit of a question mark around, there could be some better quality progressive horses in there. But I think the horse is handicapped to run a decent enough race, and I think the £7 claim is useful on the track that I think it runs best at the right distance. So Tradesman at 22s I think is a good bet. And then we're going to finish off, it's an old favourite of mine, Boasty. Keeps finding itself running in 7-runner races, but if you are using Sky 365, Ladbrokes, Betfred, BetMGM or Corals, you'll get the 3 places, which I think might be very valuable in that race. It's been on a massive drift. It's what normally happens with the horse. It gets priced up a certain way, and then in the morning it drifts. It's sort of the usual betting activity of the horse. I appreciate people haven't got all the time in the world to understand some of these things, but certain horses, when you follow them, you see the same patterns happen. So when you can follow those patterns, you can sometimes know when the right place to put the bet on is. And that one last night was about 12s and 14s, which, to be fair, I would still think is a good enough bet, but it has drifted right out. It may well drift. It may well come in the betting. So, but basically, Boasty is a course and distance specialist. It hasn't shown its best form yet this season. It looked slightly better last time. And I think actually there's not if you're saying it's got to come in the top three, I can't see two other really progressive horses. That maybe one. So actually, the form is what the form is, and if this one kicks on from last time and gets back to last season's form, then I think that's going to look like a really big odds horse. So, standard 5-horse bet for the channel. If you want to do a Canadian or Super Yankee, as I always say, to make it easy, you do a 15p one of them. But I'm doing 10 times 20p win doubles, 10 times 15p each way trebles, 5 times 15p each way fourfolds, a 25p each way fivefold. And then singles on the first three, I've got 50p each way singles. And on the bottom two, we've got 75p each way singles and a 50p each way double. So if our first three go down, we've still got the two. We don't do chasing on this channel. That's how you get to the poorhouse. You want to put a staking plan in there that gives you the best possible chance. And here, if we lose the first three horses, we've still got a chance of making some cash on those. But these are all big price horses, and the bookmakers would suggest to you, based on kind of what the prices are, we've got 5 losers here. So, and that's might be what happens. It happens sometimes. So if you're not followed me before, I'll always say, lose more days than I win. That's what most people say. I probably lose more days than most people because the winning days outweigh the losing days is the aim. All right. So because of that last race, that Boasty race, the betting advice is Sky best, because there's a couple of these where you can get an extra place above everyone else, but then the 3 places on here. So my advice is, if you haven't got Sky, 365, Ladbroke, Betfred, Coral or BetMGM, £14. That is the stake. All right. So my unprepared Cheltenham Festival anti-post ramble. That's what I was going to say. So I would just exercise caution is what I would advise to anyone making your own picks. I think this is particularly difficult this year. I think the bookies are being more defensive than most years, and what I mean by that is, in an anti-post market, you don't have the same criteria of over-round figures like you would do in a normal race. So the bookies, it's a bit more like a Wild West for the bookies. They can put whatever prices they want in terms of how to price up the market, because not all the runners are certain. So in an anti-post market, the over-round figures are ridiculous when you start adding it up. So what I mean is, if you backed every horse in the race, you would lose way more money betting anti-post than you would do in a normal betting market. So absolutely, there's been some of the shorty price favourites that will probably continue to be will probably go off shorter than what they are now, because there are always going to be a lot of favourite backers at Cheltenham. And so people will be putting those in multiples, and it will increase bookmakers' liability. So, if you want to back some of the favourites, it is better to do that prior to the event, but I wouldn't be advising that myself. It's not what I'm into, as you know. The challenge you've then got is it's very, very difficult to read, even in the championship races, where horses are going to run. It's always a bit of a minefield, but I think particularly at the moment, you've got this uncertainty. If you look at something like Champion Hurdle, Mare's Hurdle, what will Brighter Days Ahead and Lossy Mouth do? I said on the DRF video, I think Brighter Days Ahead I think should go in the Champion Hurdle. Let's see if it does. But therefore, because you've got a couple of horses at the top of the market in both races, it makes it very hard to read what is the right move to look at places. So if you were trying to look at what's a big price horse to maybe get a place in there, depending which way those go, you could lose your bet straight off the bat. So I think that's an example of where I wouldn't be looking at. You've then got this debate about horses that could run in the Champion Chase, could run in the Ryanair, and then you've got Factor File. Is that going to go Gold Cup or Ryanair? Whatever race it runs in, it should be a top 3 horse, and then that obviously influences where you're going to go. That's the easy bit. The hard bit is then the novice division. So if you look at novice hurdles, you've got a Supreme at 2 miles, you've got the 2.5 mile, 4.5, whatever it is, and a 3 mile novice hurdle. You've got horses that will flick between those. A lot of them are Mullins horses, but you've got some Elliott horses in there too. So you could look outside of those stables and try and go, well, which ones am I going to go with? But until you know how many of the others are going to be in there, is it worth taking the risk? You've then also got in the novice chase division, as much as they've made changes this year for the novice chase division, because they've taken out the 2.5 mile kind of graded race and made it into a handicap, and they've done the same with the 3 mile 6. The problem with that is the top quality horses. In theory, you'd go, well, there's more going to run in the Arkle or the Brown Advisory, but not necessarily so, because actually, people will look at that and think, well, there's less opportunities to win those races. They've got more opportunity to slightly underrun the horses in the previous races to get them qualified in these novice chase races, the novice chase handicaps. You've also then got like open company handicap chases where historically you would have had novices in there running quite well. Not so much in Ultima, but in the other ones you would do. And those, so if you've got a novice chaser, you've now got the option of, can I get it qualified at an open handicap one, or can I put it into one of the novice ones? And because the novice handicaps weren't novice handicaps, there's not really any sort of trend you can really look at. So for me, it's an absolute minefield to try and look at some of these, particularly some of these stables where there's lots of horses. You know, you'll see at the moment, I think, when you start looking at like some of the handicaps, there's Mullins horses entered into all of them, and then they're like the second favourite in most of them, and it's only going to run in one potentially. You've got that new one that popped in where him and McManus have got it from France. It's qualified. It's never run in the UK or Ireland, so it's really hard to read the form over. So there's a real minefield in just how many horses Mullins and Elliott have got and where they could put them, whereas the UK stables, they've got a lot less horses, and you can look at where they're a bit more targeted. The other thing about those Mullins and Elliott horses is that the markets at the moment are more protective of the Irish horses, because the Irish horses have dominated a lot of those races. So you've got artificially shorter prices on a lot of those Irish horses. So betting anti-post at this point, for me, I would absolutely much more looking at British horses than I would be at Irish horses, because I think there's more value in there. The other uncertainty with Irish horses in handicaps is, although the declarations have been made, the Irish handicap mark doesn't translate to the UK handicap mark. So when the handicapper looks at it, until you've actually got the next declaration phase where they give it a weight, some of those Irish horses might be giving an extra couple of pounds. Some of them could be given £6-7, and therefore that will, that's enough for me to dictate whether or not that's a good bet or not. So until you know what weight some of those Irish horses are carrying, you can make an educated guess, but it makes it harder. So you can make a judgment and go, well, that one looks well in, but then you don't know the handicap is going to stick £6 more on it. Appreciate some of this stuff folk will get, and some of it will go over depending on your experience of horses. What I'm trying to explain is there are so many factors in trying to choose what the right horses are in anti-post. And I've looked through, and things change on a daily basis. There's also always horses that are, getting up short. I mentioned that one, the Lucinda Russell one in the Ultima. It's not worth a bet now, because I don't think it's going to be massively different priced on the actual day. But at 25-1, it would have been a good bet, but it was 25-1 for about a day. And so you've kind of got to flick through. Also, some of the bookmakers are offering non-runner no bet. Some are doing anti-post and some are doing both. So then you have to kind of compare, and you can't even do that on Odds Checker, because Odds Checker gives you one of those markets, doesn't give you both those markets. So then you have to start fishing around between different bookmakers to see where you might find the betting anomaly. So broadly speaking, the horses I am looking at the moment, I don't think they're going to be wildly different in the handicaps when it comes to the race. I think the juice has been taken out of some. And from a championship race point of view, I think there's too many question marks and unknown to want to kind of get heavily involved in playing in it. So I'm not making an anti-post video with stuff. There was one standout horse, if you've got Paddy or Betfair Sportsbook, which is in the new novice chase race, the Jackie Richards novice chase race, 2.5 mile one. Which is Asta La Pasta, which is the Skelton horse, which I think is going to be the Skelton horse for that race. And if you go in the anti-post market with Paddy and Betfair, you can get 40s, where broadly speaking it's 20s and 25s elsewhere. I would much rather take the 40s and risk it not running in the anti-post market than lose myself 15 to 20 points in the non-runner no bet markets. So if you've got an account with Paddy or Betfair Sportsbook, I would have a look at that 40-1. It's not a bet I'm recording for the channel, but if you haven't got that, I wouldn't get overly excited about it. If you can get it at 20-1, then just let the next declaration phase run and see where it is, because it may well not end up going in that race. He's got a few entered in there. I think that's the one. it is the one I'd absolutely want to be on if it was running in the race, and I think 40s is a great price. So that's the only one where I got to. I'm verbally going to say there are other things I'm looking at, but I don't think the risk to reward is worth kind of putting out loads of money. So I'm hoping that sort of ramble has explained that, because you've got the unknown of the new novice handicap chasers. That gives an extra uncertainty, as well as the fact that Mullins is dominating with multiple entries in all of these handicaps for lots of horses. And even things like, the Kim Muir versus the Ultima, there's not much difference in the actual distance of the race, and one's got conditional jockeys and one hasn't. Or the Coral Cup and the Martin Pipe, the distance is minimal, but one is conditional and one is not. So generally the conditional ones favour the Irish horses. That's what the history says to you. But there are horses that you could go, well, that could run in that one, it could run in that one, and do I want to back it in both? Well, if you run it a lot of the time, you're backing non-runner no bet, you're going to basically take away some of the price, because you might find that those horses are actually better on the day. If you look at the front end of the market, those are the ones that will probably get even shorter, but bigger up the market, I think it's a minefield to try and work out at this stage. So as much as, personally, I've sort of made some bets as I've gone through the year on various things at times where I thought they were good. It's very hard for me to translate that to the channel, because they're either bookie specific or they're time sensitive. So my advice overall for all of the Cheltenham Festival Anti-Post is, with 3 weeks out, keep your cash in your pocket, wait till the week, and then have a little look. Because the other unknown, which I haven't even talked about with all the rest of it, is how much rain are we going to get? Because there are horses in there that, if I thought it was going to be good ground, look like a brilliant bet right now. But there might be a lot of rain, and you could get heavy ground. It could be anything in between. So until you get closer, you're not going to know. And there, as much in terms of top quality races, the ground makes some difference, not massive difference. In a handicap, that's the difference. It's tighter margins. It's the difference between horses wanting to enjoy themselves and not. So, yeah, all right. I think that's where I'm going to leave it. There was about 5 other things I was probably going to say. In terms of other things, just of why it's a bit of a minefield. But yeah, I think whenever they've changed, the cross country is another good example of that's now a handicap. What difference is that going to make to horses and the profile of horses in the race? So that is me. Right, my plan now is this is the video done, and I'll be back for Cheltenham Festival week. How that's going to look and how it might compare to the previous years, I'm not entirely sure. I'm hoping definitely we have a better one than last year. I think I was having a bit of an exchange with somebody in the comments the other day about it, and it was 5 double price figure horses last year in all of the races that won, and the previous years you're averaging about 10. So I had a bad year. Whenever there's going to be only a few double figure price horses, that is always going to be an indicator it's not going to be my year. So last year wasn't my year. I'm hoping that this year we get back to the norm, and the new norm isn't a repeat of last year where you've only get a few double price figure horses, because people will say to you, oh, it's always the favourites. It's not always the favourites. Last year was a lot of single figure price horses that weren't favourites that ran and won races. But on average, in the last 5 years, it's actually about 10 horses at a double figure price, which is basically about 1 in 3 races. So all you need to do is try and find yourself on a couple of those positions, and you're all right. Okay, I'm hoping February's treating you well. I'll be back in about 3 weeks time for Cheltenham Festival, with a view that the first video would probably be on the Monday, ready for the Tuesday. Well, I certainly won't be on the Tuesday morning, so it'll be on the Monday before Cheltenham. Outside possibility, it could even be the Sunday, but probably the Monday. All right, have a good Saturday. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.